Well, it's looking good cooking. Brought to you by Vodka we found on sale at the grocery store. Today, we will be making some very spicy chicken sandwiches. Let's get into it. Step one, what we're going to do is we're actually going to get some of the ingredients prepped ahead of time. They'll need this in the fridge for a while. So first thing we're going to knock out is going to be the coleslaw. So usually I like to get both colors of coleslaw. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Regardless, it'll all look like this one. Next thing we're going to do is knock out slicing up these carrots. I really fucking hate my fingers, so I prefer to use one that doesn't grip to the surface whatsoever to do my shredding. Next thing I'm going to add to the coleslaw, a little bit of pineapples. I prefer just to get the canned ones nice and easy, and I can make them a fun little shape. Next thing we're going to add is the only two spices that I imperatively recommend all of you have in your cupboard all the time, MSG and salt, the two godsends of flavor. So for the MSG, it's really kind of like dealer's choice. A lot of people just choose not to use it whatsoever. I usually go for about yay much. Same for the salt. You know, try to add less than you think you're actually going to need, because you can always add more salt later. But it's really, really tricky to actually remove it from any sort of dish. And then the staple in every single coleslaw, a kind of jarring amount of mayo. And use more mayo than you think you'll need. It'll only make it better. So if you have to use an entire Kroger container of mayo, do it like I just did. You won't be disappointed. Black pepper is the only thing I recommend holding off on. I've noticed that whenever I have to use it towards the beginning of the dish, it always seems to mellow out the flavors a little bit more than I want it to. So if you're gonna do fresh black pepper or already pre-ground black pepper, highly recommend waiting to use it as a garnish at the end of the dish. I promise you won't be disappointed. Add a little bit of that acidity. Highly recommend just a little bit of white vinegar. Some people like apple cider vinegar. Kind of dealer's choice. All right, that's about good. We're just gonna go ahead and mix up our coleslaw. And you don't have to do like a crazy heavy mix. It'll all saturate and sit there in the fridge for a while. So you really don't have to do any sort of crazy mixing. Just make sure everything gets incorporated. Very, very simple stuff here. Coleslaw is one of the things where I feel like anyone should be able to make it. Same with like things like potato salad. But yeah, once you have that kind of all set and ready to go, you can just go ahead, throw that bad boy in the fridge and leave it for about an hour or so. You don't want to eat coleslaw immediately. Biggest mistake a lot of people make is they make it fresh. You don't. You want that sucker sitting in the fridge for a little bit to help the flavors marinate. And now we're going to move on to just really, really, really simple chicken marinade. If you're making fried chicken, honestly, it's kind of imperative that you get yourself some sort of chicken marinade. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm going to show you guys today what I use for mine. It's been one I've used for a while. It is based off of kind of the flavor that you get like Popeye's chicken. So very first thing, you're gonna get chicken thighs, because if you can get them, there's no reason why you shouldn't get chicken thighs. They're extremely forgiving. It's really, really kind of hard to mess them up, in fairness. For chicken breasts, you can overcook it fairly quickly. Chicken thighs give you a lot more of that roomy space. So we'll go ahead, throw some of these guys into our little container. And you can use really any container you want as long as it's got a lid. Next thing, if you don't have buttermilk, no problem. Just use casual milk. Just make sure you have some sort of like vinegar, lemony pairing to go with it. Every copycat recipe that says how to make buttermilk, same thing. A little bit of milk, a little bit of vinegar. That's all it takes.
Okay.
Next ingredient, it's one of my favorite things to add for any sort of fried chicken, any sort of chicken I've ever done. I must always brine it in pickle juice. Something about that flavor is just really fantastic. If you guys give it a shot, I promise you guys like it too. Next thing, always just a little bit of paprika. Gives that little reddish hue to it and makes the chicken a nice little pinker color. Next thing, black and white pepper. Both are kind of staples in fried chicken flavor. Can't really go wrong with them. Just try not to overdo it. And then, as always, a little bit of heat. Get some red cayenne for this guy. Don't want it to be too crazy hot, just because whenever I have guests eating my food, I always have to be considerate of them. When I'm cooking for myself, I kind of go overboard with everything that has to do with heat. But in the last and final ingredient, a little bit of salt. You kind of want to be seasoning things with every step of your cooking. It's kind of what helps you kind of keep things in track. You taste it as you go along, figure out what you like the flavor of. The most important thing is the food tastes good to you. Then I'm just going to lid it, and I do have the luxury of having something that is a shakeable container for this part, but if you don't, just stir it up, mix it in with your hands. Just make sure all that chicken's getting coated. And you're gonna set this guy in the fridge for about an hour to 24 hours. You don't want to go any higher than that, otherwise the chicken might start to degrade and fall apart, and that just tastes mushy. But you don't want to go any less than a couple of hours, otherwise you're not going to get that flavor penetration all the way through to the middle of the chicken, which is what we're going after. Because the outer coating of it is going to have its own flavor. We want to make sure that chicken is not boring. That could be the worst thing we can do to this poor chicken, is give it a boring flavor. And next thing we're going to make is just either a glaze or a sauce, depending on how you want to use it, for the chicken sandwiches. If you don't have a couple of these empty bad boys lying at home, highly recommend it. If not, just clear out a mustard or a ketchup when you use it. That's what I use for a large amount of time. But start things off, a little bit of sesame oil. If you are going to use it as a glaze, the sesame oil is very important, or any sort of oil for that matter, to make sure that it actually sticks to the chicken. Because once that crispy skin gets nice and dry and you want to hit with that glaze, you'll be thanking me. All right, sriracha, and for the sauce, I feel like you get to actually kind of go a little over the top with the amount of spice you use, because you can choose how much or how little to put on it. Buy the fuck out of that. A little bit of soy sauce to give it extra salt and that classic flavor. Just a tiny dab of vinegar. I feel like vinegar, when it just comes to sauces in general, great little flavor, great little acid to balance everything out. Last thing is a little sweetness with a little bit of sake. Just a tiny bit. Don't use your favorite sake. Just use someone you pick up just on a regular basis. Doesn't need anything fancy. Once we have that guy all mixed up together, put a little top on. Give it a little shake. All right, we're gonna give it a little taste.
So good and tasty.
The flavor is phenomenal. That's gonna taste fantastic on the chicken. I'm really excited for this. All right. All right, welcome back. We've now had our coleslaw marinating and our chicken marinating. Next thing we gotta do is start battering up and frying up the chicken. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crack a couple eggs into our first bowl. It's gonna be our wet bowl. Usually I have just a wet and a dry station. Some people do the double batter. I really haven't had any issues just doing a single batter, so we're gonna stick to the way we know. Next thing I'm gonna add is a tiny bit of baking powder. Just a tiny bit. Perfect. Next thing, cornstarch. Cornstarch is awesome because once you mix it in, it becomes almost like a paste, and it helps coat the chicken really well. And the very last thing we're gonna do is good old tried and true vodka. May seem kind of funny, but a lot of places, especially in Europe, actually use vodka and other alcohols like it in order to make their fish batters. Because when vodka hits the hot oil, it creates these air pockets and bubbles and make it extremely crispy. Just gonna mix this up. When you're whisking this up, you're gonna be wanting to look for more of a pancake batter kind of consistency. That way you really know it's gonna coat the chicken well. All right, once that goes done, some good old-fashioned panko. Gotta make your own or buy at the store. Either way, it works just fine. I would start with a little less than I think I'm going to, just because you can always roll around the chicken a little bit more. All right, perfect. So I just finished prepping the oil and the cast iron right over there. Just gonna get it nice and toasty. That way you drop the chickens in. You always wanna make sure your oil's a little hotter than you think you're gonna need, just because the moment the cold chicken hits it, it'll drop the temperature significantly. All right, we're just gonna do the classic frying method. You know, one dip in the wets, one dip in the dries, and we're good to go. Alright, now we're gonna get the buns all nice and toasty. Everyone loves some toasted buns. Alright, just get those on a nice toasting cast iron. Next thing we're gonna see is if our oil is hot enough. Just take a little bit of water in my hand. Alright, it's yelling at us, so you know it's ready. Alright, so here comes everyone's favorite part. Always make sure that you lay the fried food away from you. I've burnt myself well over enough times to learn this. Please, learn from my mistakes. See, and that's really hot. So you wanna be careful. And you're gonna let that go for about, I don't know, 5 minutes? That should work. Alright, now that our chicken is nice and crispy and finally finished, we're going to go ahead and start plating. Perfect. Alright, start with patty on the bottom. And for this, honestly, I'm just going to apply the sauce directly to the chicken. That way there is not a bite of chicken without sauce. Alright, next thing we're going to add on is our pineapple slaw. Very last thing is some homemade pickled onions, which are, you should always have these in your household. All right, and the most important part to any sandwich is sticking something through the center. There we go. Perfect. There you have it. Alright, time for the moment of truth. And leave that one for my wife. And this actually tastes this bad boy. It's pretty good, pretty easy to handle.
Oh, God, it's so good.
Right off the bat, you get hit with this sauce. You get that little bit of sesame oil taste to it. Then you're immediately hit with that nice pickly chicken taste and that really nice heat to it. Very last thing you kind of taste is you taste that pickled onion and the bun kind of mixing in together. Honestly, really fantastic. I'm gonna go for another one of these. Chicken's perfectly cooked. So this one's a win. Yeah, so I just went to like clear my throat to do my outro video, and I left the sink on fucking blazing hot. I just drank a cup of hot water. I didn't even stop. I just went for the second gulp, just very committed to it. So, thank you for watching today's video. I had a lot of fun making this recipe. I hope you guys can make it at home. If you have any questions, I'll leave some information down below in the description at the bottom. Unfortunately, I didn't do too much measuring in this video, but if this becomes a regular thing for me, I'll make sure to measure things out a little more precisely for you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.